I took that pattern and figured out a strategy, and he proved it worked in the Midwest of the United States with blue-collar workers who'd never saved a dime.
Planning will come. It is important, but it's not your first step. Your first step is
trade your expectations for appreciation, and it's a whole new world instantly.
Rise and shine, it's Entspresso time. Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I am not a morning person, I'm not. But when you start your day off with a routine that inspires you, like watching one of these videos, it will change your life. So let's start your day off right together. Grab your coffee, know that I believe in you, and get ready for a shot of Entspresso from Tony Robbins.
I wake up every morning, Espresso keep me going. I wake up every morning.
You know, I interviewed all these Nobel Prize guys as well as all these self-made billionaires. And one of them was a man named Shlomo, who was really brilliant. He said, you know what, people don't invest because A, they say, I don't have the money. But you know, we're all good at dieting tomorrow. You know, I'm gonna go on a diet tomorrow, we all believe it. Or we're all good at saving tomorrow. We're not gonna save today because we wanna spend the money, but we'll save in the future. So he said, I took that pattern and figured out a strategy, and he proved it worked in the Midwest of the United States with blue-collar workers who'd never saved a dime. He went to them and said, I know you say you have no money. I'd ideally like you to save at least 5%, but minimum promise me 3.5% because no one's gonna miss 3.5%. You'll adjust to that easily. But here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this plan called Save More for Tomorrow. We're gonna go to your employer and you're gonna tell them that whenever you get a raise, whenever it is, next year, 2 years, 10 years, doesn't matter when, 5%, whatever, the first 5% of money goes straight into this account. Well, within 15 years, these blue-collar workers were saving an average of 15%, and the top 40% were saving 20. When you save 20, you know, I mean, that's the example of the guy from, you know, who goes and has got $70 million. He saved 20% over time. So anyone can do it.
The only thing you're missing is momentum. You've got great ambitions, great dreams, great potential. You have $1 million ideas inside you. You know you want to serve, you know you want to help, and yet you're stuck, you're slow, your progress is nowhere near where it needs to be because there's not enough momentum, because you're still living in tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. You have to flip it. You have to, there's one thing that if you actually understand, ingrain, adapt, apply to your life every day is to take the ideas that I'm gonna do something tomorrow and make it happen today, switch your tomorrows with today, your life changes. Otherwise, you will get to the end of your life looking back, regretting, knowing that you could have done more, knowing that you could have pushed harder, knowing that you were just full of excuses and you never actually took the action that was required. Switch your tomorrows and make it today. I'm a big believer in as soon as you get an idea, do something. You get an idea, don't judge it, don't question it, trust that it comes from a good place, and then do something about it. Here's some honesty. I was actually having a hard time making this video because I was thinking about somebody. I was thinking about an entrepreneur friend of mine who's going through a little bit of a rough time, and you know what? I decided I'm gonna stop making videos because my energy isn't where it needs to be, because I'm distracted thinking about this thing, and I'm just gonna go to Instagram and send a quick message. And so I sent her a quick message. Said, hey, sending you lots of love today. Hope you're doing well. Just something quick, and we'll see if she sees it. I mean, she'll see it. We'll see what she writes back. We'll see if that leads to a bigger conversation. We'll see if that was just it and she just gives it a heart and just give her a little bit of blessing for today. I'm a big believer that these ideas flow through you, and we're in the business of turning off that tap. You're basically shutting off the tap of inspiration, of greatness, of genius, of momentum every single day because our head gets in the way. Because a lot of times the things that we want to do don't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense for me to stop to go do that video or to send that message. Because I'm making this, I need to make so many videos today for you guys, for the channel. I have a schedule. I'm behind right now in the schedule. But I trust that it will all work out, and I trust that I'm thinking about this person for a reason. Why am I thinking about her? Well, there must be a reason for it. So instead of, again, questioning it, judging it, I'm just gonna go do it. And it almost, I've never had it backfire. Sometimes it turns to be the greatest thing of all time. Sometimes it's just this one-off moment. But as long as the intention is good, learn to trust your judgment. So I'm okay that I delayed making this video so that I can go send my friend a little bit of love today. I feel better. And now I'm showing up for you guys better. And I have a good story to tell for this video. So how do you do it? Because this is a big challenge. This is a giant challenge for so many entrepreneurs. How do you actually do it? How do you get out of your head? How do you get unstuck? How do you get into momentum land? I'm going to give you 3 big ideas. Three, okay? Number 1 is go from idea to action. Idea to action, idea to action, idea to action, idea to action. Stop shutting off your ideas. Stop judging the ideas. Stop telling yourself that you can't do it. Stop telling yourself you can do it tomorrow. Stop finding ways to delay. As soon as your head gets in the way, you lose. Because a lot of the ideas that you have don't really make sense. Your heart is making new things happen. Your heart can imagine a world that hasn't existed yet. Your heart can birth something new into the world, where your head only understands a world that currently exists. So your head is designed to keep you safe, practical, and small. And so as soon as you get an idea, as long as it's coming from a good place, right? It's not an idea to screw somebody over, to hurt somebody, or to cause harm, or something like that, right? It's coming from a good place. Is your intent positive? Yes, great, go do something about it. Just default, just learn to shut off your brain. This is what I've done. This is what has led to so much momentum in my life, is I've learned to just shut off my brain in those moments and say, okay, this idea is flowing through me. I have to go do something about it right now, today. Not even like later today, immediately, right now. This thing has to happen right now. Why? Because the idea came to me. Let that be justification enough that the idea came to you, therefore you must do something on it right now. The idea came to you in this moment, therefore you must go do something about it right now. Stop overthinking it. Get out of your head. The head is not allowed into the equation anymore. And watch magical things happen in your life and in your business. Step number 2 is apply the 2% difference. And what the 2% difference is most of us, when we get great ideas, what we do is we start planning. We start planning, we plan, we research, you make the perfect business plan, we plan. And I was the guy who made the perfect business plan and lost a $40 million deal because I took too long to do it, right? We're so busy trying to be perfect that we don't do anything. And so instead of planning to try to get to 100%, which is what we're trying to do, what's my plan to accomplish my goal? And in theory, it sounds like a good idea, right? It sounds like this is what you should be doing. In theory, it sounds great. What's my plan to get to 100%, to get my goal? The problem is it doesn't account for motivation, for energy, because what's going to happen is you're going to spend your best hours, your best energy. You're feeling bold about an idea you've got. Great. You're going to spend those bold moments making your plan, and then you're going to be excited about your plan. And then the next day you're going to wake up and say, oh, I can't do that plan. You look over your plan and say, I can't do this. I've never done this. I don't have the school, education, background, parents, resources, connections, finances, XYZ. I can't do this. So no matter how perfect a plan is, you still don't execute because you don't believe that you can execute on it. So the problem is we spent all of our best moments, you spent your best energy on planning instead of doing. Where the 2% difference is, instead of planning to get to 100%, just execute the first 2%. What's the first 2%? It's going to be imperfect. The whole idea is not to get to 100% with our first plan. That's not it. Planning will come, but it's not the first step. Planning will come. I'm going to repeat that because it's important. Planning will come. It is important, but it's not your first step. Your first step is action. Let's say you want to lose weight. Great. You're going to go to the gym. Awesome. What workout should you do? Should you be doing cardio? Should you be doing CrossFit? Should you be doing weights? Should you be doing... There's so many different plans. You could get lost in research, right? You're going to get lost in research. There's so many different options. What's going to happen is you research, and it becomes overwhelming, then becomes, oh my gosh, this is too crazy. I'm not going to do it. And you fall back down to where you were. What's the best thing you do? What's the 2% difference? The 2% difference, here it is. You want to get in better shape. Great. The 2% difference is you go do 5 push-ups. Or the 2% difference is you go for a 20-minute walk, right? Or a 2-minute run, or you take some stairs today. Like the 2% difference is you just go do something. If that was my goal right now, I would get out of the car, go out, maybe not on there because, you know, the driveway there because it's cars, but go on the sidewalk and do as many push-ups as I could. Maybe I could do 25 push-ups, right? That's what I would do. That's the 2% difference. Now, will those 25 push-ups make me healthier? No. Not really, not in the grand scheme of things. Like, what are 25 push-ups? What's 1 flight of stairs? What's 1 little walk? Nothing. And this is where we judge ourselves and say, well, this is not a good idea because we need to have the whole plan. But will those 25 push-ups actually make a difference? Yes. Yes, it's more important than the plan. Why? Because you're showing yourself that you take action, that you create momentum. You're finally proving to yourself, that you're the kind of person who follows through. And so the push-ups on the sidewalk there are the best thing you can do. You get an idea. You don't worry yet about the perfect plan. You go create immediate action, that 2%, the first 2%. And then you can start the plan, right? You go do your push-ups, great. Now you create a plan for tomorrow. And then you do more work tomorrow. And then you create a plan for the next day. And you slowly start building out your plan as you get going. Because newsflash, guys, your plan is not going to be perfect anyway. You spend all this time making this perfect plan. It's not going to be perfect anyway. You're going to get out and start testing it. And you're going to find that most of it doesn't work anyway. Great. You have to adjust. This is a game of adjusting. Momentum, the first 2%, the 2% difference, apply it. And then the third thing I would say is get some kind of community around you. Get some community of action takers, of movement makers. I say movement makers because I have my own community called Movement Makers. But get a community, get around people who are taking action. Because for too many of you, you are the biggest action taker in your community, in your circle, in your family. You're doing more than the people around you already, but it's nothing compared to what you could do. And when you compare yourself, or even not even comparison, like an active comparison, it's a passive comparison. You feel like you're doing more than the people around you. Great, there's nobody lifting you up, pulling you up, saying, hey, let's go do this. I guarantee you, if you started hanging around people who are doing more, you would start to want to do more. You would start to get closer to your potential. You would start to say, I know I can do more than this. Let's go. Let's stop. Suddenly the excuses that you have in your head, the reasons why you can't do it, are no longer valid. They suddenly disappear because you've gotten yourself into a different group. Now, that could be a physical group, like somebody who you're actually meeting regularly, or it could be like this. I get my biggest community through the videos that I watch and the videos that I create. That's why I have Entspresso, so that Monday to Friday, every morning, we've got a video for you to learn, to get your shot of Entspresso, to be around people like Tony Robbins and Oprah Winfrey and the people who inspire me and hopefully inspire you. So if that's how you learn, awesome. There's an Entspresso video for you 5 days a week. If it's other channels, if it's my top 10 channel or somebody else, great, follow them. If you actually need people, look to join a community. Look to join Movement Makers. That's my community. Look to join somebody else's community. Look to be around. I'm telling you, when you're around people who are doing things, who are moving, who are taking action, who are overcoming their fears, who are facing their challenges, it will inspire you to live a bigger life. It'll inspire you to have more courage to show up for yourself, for your family, for your community, for your country, for the people around you. It will. It has to happen. There's an energy to this, and we're too locked up in our heads, which are designed, again, to keep us safe, scared, and small. You have to tap into the energy. You have to tap into your heart, and being around people who are doing it will explode that forward for you in a way that you can't imagine. You're a genius. You're a genius. You've got heart, you've got soul, you've got compassion. You want to make a difference. You want to serve. You want to make an impact. And you know you can. You know you can. Deep down, there's this little voice inside you fighting to come out saying, you know you can do this. The only thing you're missing is momentum. It's time to get it today. Now I've got a special bonus clip that I think you're gonna enjoy, but before that, it's time for the question of the day. I wanna know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? When you just get inspired, you watch a video, you get motivated, amazing. The science says you have a 35% chance of actually doing something, actually following through. That, Believe Nation, is not enough. That is not you, not now, not anymore, not today. But when you get inspired and then you create a specific plan of action for what you're gonna do, that number jumps to 91% chance of you following through. And when you commit publicly to others, like leaving a comment in this video, it jumps to 95%. So the question of the day is your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week. Put it down in the comments below, and maybe next week I'll profile you. Also, if you want to have more self-confidence and self-belief, I've designed a special free training to help you do it. The science says it can take up to 254 days of consecutive action to build a new habit. And I want that for you. I want you to build the habit of self-belief. So what I'm gonna do is email you every day for 254 days, a link to an unlisted video that will shift your belief forward. To get on it for free, the link to join is in the description below.
If you want to change your life, my friends, you got to change your physiology and you got to change your focus. My very first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I want to get my head right. I do this thing called priming. Today, what creates marketing is when you don't just market, but you add value to people.
So how do we invest without fear of, oh, it's going down, I need to take it out, or like trying to time it? How do we do that?
Great question. It's one of the main reasons I wrote the book. I always tell people, if you just read the second chapter of the book and nothing else, it'll change your life. You can do that with multiple chapters, but that chapter is really about teaching people that winter is coming. We all know winter's coming, right, to coin a phrase, but that winter is the best time on earth. And I know that's counterintuitive, and I don't mean like being a positive thinker. I mean pure facts. So in the book, I take you through 10 facts. I'll give you a couple of them right now. The first fact I give people is, why do people not invest? They're afraid of failing. If you're a millennial, right? So you grew up witnessing 2008 when you were still relatively young. How old are you now?
33.
Okay, so you were what, 27? What?
2008. Yeah, 27. I guess.
Yeah, 27, 28 years old. So you're a young man, and you're watching the world melting down in front of you. For most millennials, they are the first generation since the generation that went through the Depression that is not investing at the ratio they need to, even close.
And they have more debt than everyone probably, right? With all the
They have more
loans.
college debt than everyone, absolutely true.
I have a friend that has $400,000 in debt, dental school.
President Obama just paid off his debt 5 years ago while he was still president.
No.
I swear to God.
Oh my gosh.
It's mind-boggling. And he had a bunch of scholarships, but the last bit, it took him that long. So what I tell them is, listen, paying off your debt's not enough. You've got to become an owner, or you're always going to be in that place. So yes, pay off your debt, but here's what you need to know. You got to become an owner. You got to get in the game, but you got to understand the rules of the game. If you don't know the rules of the game, the old phrase is, when a person with experience meets a person with money, we know the phrase, the person with the money ends up with the experience, the person with experience ends up with your money, right? So I teach people the rules of the game so they don't get screwed. But the most important thing is this. Winter's coming, but people react. So let's take last year. Last January, 2016, we had the worst stock market opening in the history of the stock market. First, I think it was 10 days. There was a drop of $2.3 trillion with a T.
Crazy.
Everybody's and the bear market's here, the market's over, the crash is here. I think the market dropped 800 points one day. And on that day, all the richest people in the world were in Davos, Switzerland, for the big conference that they do every year. And they went there, MSNBC went there, and everybody's, what's happening? What are we going to do? And they said, let's go ask Ray Dalio. Now, your listeners may or may not know Ray Dalio as, if you're not in the financial business, probably never heard of him. You probably heard of Warren Buffett, but Ray Dalio's done more. You had to have a $5 billion net worth and $100 million to give him, or he wouldn't talk to you 10 years ago. Now, he doesn't give a shit how much money you have, he won't talk to you because he's got a closed fund. But they go and they put Dalio on television, CNBC, he's the king. What do we do? And he says, well, you don't need to panic. Corrections happen all the time. But you need a strategy that when markets go up and down, you don't go up and down. And he said, I spent 15 years of my life to perfect such a strategy. All of my money's in that plan. And he said, it's called All Seasons, and I've never revealed it before, but I gave it to Tony Robbins. He extracted from me, and it's his book. So you got to go read his book. This is what he says on national television the day the markets are crashing. And that day, to give you an idea, which is the beginning of February, I think it was 9 days into February, the market was down 9% in the first 5 weeks of the year. His strategy, which he gave me, which has made money 85% of the time for the last 75 years.
Wow.
It's averaged a 10% return, just under, and the average loss, when at 15% loss, was 1.6.
Right.
So if you go to Vegas and you could spend 85% of the time make money, and when you made money it was 10%, your loss is 1.6, you go forever. His plan made 2% while the market was down 9%. So it was up 11% difference. Now, I'm not suggesting that's the only strategy to do. There's many. His is the smoothest ride with the least risk. But what it did was combination of that, and then right after that, I interviewed Fed Chair Alan Greenspan. He was the head of our economy, the most powerful man in finance for 19 years, 4 presidents. He was there running. I was just with President Clinton this last week. He was the Fed chair for him. And I interviewed him for like 2 hours, or 3 hours off stage, 2 hours in front. And I asked him in the very beginning of this thing, I said to him, I said, look, if you could be put in the Fed today, what would you do? And he looks at me, and as I said, he leans forward and he says, resign. So I look at that and go, oh my God, I need to write a book that'll free people. So here's what will free you. Everyone's afraid of the crash. So here's what you need to know. 2 terms you should understand. Correction versus crash. Anytime the market drops from its high by 10% or more up to 20, it's called a correction.
Right.
If it drops 20% or more up to 80%, like in the Great Depression, then it's called a crash or called a bear market. Okay. So how often does a correction happen? How often do we have to be prepared for it? Since 1900, we've had a correction on average every year for 116 years. So when is winter coming? This year on average. It's like, how often does winter come? You wouldn't be surprised if it stormed and rained. Now, some winters are long, some are short, some are harsh, some are light, but winter always comes. So I wasn't panicked when this happened last year. I'm not panicked whenever it happens because I know it's supposed to be. Yeah. How long does it last? Average, 56 days. Okay, so just under 2 months. What's the average drop during that time? 14% over the last 30 years, 13.5 of the last 100 years. So I use the more recent one. 14% gets your attention, right? 14% you get a little gut check. Yeah. But here's what you need to know. 80% of all corrections never become a bear market. 80%. So all this fear, and what people do is what you said you did, is they see it, it's f***ing out, I'm losing money, I'm out of here, and they get out. The stock market never took a dime from anybody, only you can take it from you. You sold, that's why you lost. Right. So if you look back and say, what was it like in 2008? I can remember vividly being with my platinum partners and saying, you see these $80 stocks? This is 6 months before the crash. I told them in April, I brought them to Dubai, and I said, these stocks are going to go to 8, and some are going to go to $1. Wow. And by October, and I told them what to do, so they were able to get out. October, I go on the Today Show in October of 2008, and they go, Tony, there's been $3 trillion meltdown. Pump the country up. You got 4 minutes. like, ready to go. That's not what I do, first of all. And I said, that'd be a lie. I'm not going to pump up. At that point, the $80 stocks were 8. I said, some of those, I said, I'm not a market forecaster, but I work with Paul Tudor Jones, one of the greatest investors in the history of the world. In the biggest market crash in history, 1987, he made 200%. Wow. When everybody else was losing their entire life. And I've been coaching him continuously now for 24 years, every single day. Wow. So I said, I work with the best in the world. And they're telling me, based on history in the 30s and history in the 70s, this $8 stock, some are going to be $1. And I remember the day in March of 2009, Citibank, which had been, I think, $70, sold for 97 cents. You could go and take your money out of the ATM. It costs you more to take your money out than to own the bank, right? And then I told people it'll jump from 99 cents to $6, $10, $12 in a month or two, and it's exactly what it did, right? So what you got to know is corrections happen every year. You got to know they're a couple of months. You got to know it's 14%, and you won't lose because 80% of the time it doesn't go to a bear. Now, what about the bear? The bear market, it happens, to give you an idea, in the last 100 years, every 3 to 5 years. You've gone 8 without one. We're way overdue. Yeah. So in modern years, last 30 years, it's about every 5 years. The average length of a bear is 1 year. The average drop is 33%. Wow. A third of those drops go 40% or above. That, I don't care how well prepared you are, that's a scary thing. Yeah. But it is the greatest opportunity in your lifetime to go from wherever you are financially to where you want to be. I hope your audience is listening right now. Hear me. If you want to leapfrog and you're a millennial and you think there's no future, or you're, a baby boomer and you think you're too old and it's too late, the greatest gift you have is coming. I know it doesn't sound like it. This is not positive thinking. This is the truth. Wall Street, the stock market, is the only place that when things go on sale, people freak out. If I said, you like Ferraris? Sure. If I said to you, Ferraris go on sale for 50% off. Awesome. But when I tell you Apple's on sale for 50% off, you go, oh, what am I going to do here? What's wrong? The whole world's coming to an end. If you think about it, how old are you? 33. 33. So let's assume if you were 35 and you lived to 85, you got 50, 52 years ahead of you. That means you have 52 more corrections to live through. Right. That means you're probably in those 50 years going to have 10 more bear markets to live through. If you're going to have a gut checks every time, or you're going to leave out of it, right? If you didn't participate because you thought, oh, the market's too volatile, I can't trust it, all that stuff, you missed 250% return in the last 8 years. I mean, you've missed out on everything while you're waiting for things to be better. And if you won't do it when it's like this, when it crashes, you're not going to get in.
Sure.
So here's the good news about the bear. The good news about the bear, average ones a year. Could be longer, but that's the average. Could be shorter. But here's what's cool. Every single bear market in the history of the United States has led to a bull market, meaning right afterwards. So 2008, this plummeting, what happened in 2009? Up 67% in a year. I can show you every single bear market, and the next year when it comes out, it's this explosion. Now, that's not true in every market in the world. It's true for 2 centuries in the United States.
Wow.
So that's why Warren Buffett says, I want to be greedy when people are afraid. And I want to be afraid when people are greedy. If you remember 2008, he was telling everybody, buy. He was having the time of his life. Buy, everything's on sale. So what you have to do to become unshakable is the metaphor I use is turn the snake into the rope. You know, I went through a divorce. I met a woman, fell in love with her, and fell in love with her kids. She'd been married twice before me. She was 12 years my senior. So I was 24 and had a 17-year-old son instantly, an 11-year-old, a 5-year-old, and then one on the way. Really great lady, but we're completely different. No one tells you how to pick your partner. But I fell in love with the children, so I was like, I don't want to lose these kids, you know? So I eventually decided to get a divorce. And when I got the divorce, it was a not happy divorce from the standpoint of I tried to give her half of everything, but they got 8 times and a 10 times multiple on all my companies. In those days, I didn't have 31, I had like 7. And they were small companies. They weren't billion-dollar companies. They were like less than 100 million, most of them. Yeah. And some of them were only dependent upon me, like a doctor. If I don't show up, the whole thing falls apart. And so I'm looking at this. I got to pay her 8 and 10 times. I got to pay her $50 million, and I didn't have $50 million. So I settled on $42 million. I had to pay her $42 million when I didn't have it, and I started over at 39 years old. And I had to pay her not only $42 million, but I had to pay her $1 million a year for 17 years. I was only married to her for 14 years, right? Wow. So I just paid that off a couple of years ago. And the reason I tell you the story is, in the beginning, I had to pay her $1 million a year, plus I had to pay the taxes on it before I ate. It was, and when I met her, she was broke. Now I was broke, and I was the best in the world at what I was doing. But the power of that was, when I wouldn't let go, when I finally said, I'm going to stop being angry, I'm just going to automate it and let go, my capacity grew tenfold. It's like I never looked back. It's like, because I had to come up with an additional $1 million, I had to think bigger, I had to do things bigger. So I started creating new relationships, new partnerships, new businesses, and it made me grow to a $5 billion a year company, set of companies, versus not even a little more than 100 million back in those days. So in 8 years, my life has transformed because I put that tax on myself and I invested heavily, and I didn't have the money to do it, but I did it anyway because I had to.
Yeah, gotcha. That's golden. So actually, let's talk about your companies and switch gears a little bit. I'd love to know around leadership and, to build, like collectively a $5 billion.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of people do you need to have around you as a leader?
What's interesting, in the early stages of myself as an entrepreneur, I started all these companies from scratch. And then I met a gentleman, the gentleman who started MTV, and we had this really cool conversation. He said, Tony, it took me a decade and a half to really build up MTV. And he said, and then I built another company, and he said, Tony, what I realized? It takes like 7 years, that was his number in his head, on average, to go from scratch to build something that's really stable and strong and so forth. And he goes, I realized there's only so many 7-year cycles in my body. And he said, but if I went to a company that already has been around for 7, 10, 20 years, and I bring my ability, my vision, my ability to grow that business, my ability to inspire the people, my ability to produce resourcefulness, then I get a multiplied effect. And he goes, Tony, you're the best in the world at what you do, but damn, you work your tail off. And so he asked me if I'd come speak. One of the companies he took over was Century 21 Real Estate. Yep. And he said, why haven't you ever spoken for us? I said, because your company asked me over and over, but they're cheap. They want to pay me $100,000 and my fee's $250,000. He goes, we'll pay the $250,000. I said, no, for you, I'll do it for free. Because he's a friend, and I'm learning from him. So I came and did the speech, and afterwards he sat me back down, and he goes, Tony, there are 10,000 people here. He says, I know like all my financial guys, they all look to you, but you're like a rock star from middle America. These people in gold jackets selling real estate. He goes, do you know how much our business increased in those 4 months? And I don't remember the exact number. It was like 22 or 23% or something. He goes, do you know how much money you made me? And you got nothing. He said, let me give you some advice. Go find people that have some form of momentum that you can turn it around and get a piece of that. And that's how I changed. So what I looked for were businesses that I felt tremendous emotional connection to because I felt they touched people's lives in some way. And I looked for partners that were geniuses, but where I could bring my own genius to it, where 1 + 1 = 5, or at least 3, not 2. And by doing that, I got pieces of these different companies, and then it just grew and grew and grew and grew. So I'm in virtual reality. I have a company called NextVR. My partners are geniuses, and we just locked down the exclusive for the NBA. So instead of Monday Night Football, we have Tuesday Night NBA, and you literally, it's like you're on the court, you can look and feels like you can reach out and touch LeBron. It's mind-boggling, and there's no cords or computer. It's all done off your phone with an app. It's mind-boggling.
Wow.
We also have the exclusive for Live Nation for all concerts. So you can be right there next to Jay-Z or Beyonce, like you feel like you can touch them, right? I have a company that's #1 guy in stem cells in the world. I have a company that does genetics, that's just genius. I've got companies that are in the education space. I bought Adweek with a group of partners. I have my financial companies. So the diversity I have is mind-boggling, but that's also the secret to investing. If you got all your eggs in one basket and there's a problem, you need to make sure you run your business really successful, give it your all, not start 20 of them. But once that business really is strong and your investments are strong, then you can build a second one. Most people, they build a business and then it's not going as well as they want, so I start another business because it feels more exciting. And it's like you have one child you're not taking care of, so let's have a second child and a third child, and it just doesn't work. But the diversity of it also makes me excited. So I manage 12 of them actively. The others, I have such great partners. Like, I own the Major League Soccer new franchise in LA. I'm a partner in that. It's called the LA Football Club. But my partner is Peter Guber, who owns the LA Dodgers and owns the Golden State Warriors, and about as smart a human as you could ever have in the sports field. And then I bought in the esports field. It's mind-boggling. We fill whole stadiums now with people watching people play video games. So I bought Team Liquid, which with my partners, with Peter and everyone else, and so, the opportunities are just amazing because I'm partnering with people who have skills that are the best in the world, and I'm bringing mine. And when you combine them, you get a greater impact.
I see. I'm curious, when it comes to focus versus having multiple businesses, how do you know when you're ready to start to diversify?
It's a great question. When I was 32, 33, maybe 34, somewhere in that range, I was really frustrated because I love what I do for a living. Its emotional rewards are gigantic, but it's not a business that has a great deal of opportunity for maximizing profit because this is a low margin business. And I didn't get into it saying what's the best business to get in. It's just I'm an artist. I want to help people change their lives. This is my mission. So we were in the 9-10% margin, and it doesn't take much of a challenge when your margin's that small to have a real challenge in your business. So I called a group of billionaire friends of mine that I've coached over the years, and I always want to be the giver. I never asked for anything, but I said to them, look, I have these 7 or 8 opportunities that are being put in front of me that look incredible. I still want to run my core business, but I'd love to get your coaching. I've coached you guys. Would you be willing to coach me just for a couple hours? So I brought them all here in New York, had this incredible meeting I'll never forget. And I decided I wanted to add value, so I introduced them to each other. They all knew of each other. They're all kings of titans of business. Some were friends. And then I said, so let me share you the good, the bad, the ugly of my story. And so I told them my entrepreneurial story from the very beginning, no money, the ups and downs, the near-death experiences. And I was watching their eyes get this big because a lot of them, they didn't start businesses like that, right? Some of them started businesses by getting $1 billion loan, one guy, right? He was able to do because it's financial backing. And so I could see them getting more and more tense. And long story short, at the end, they're like, stop. You shouldn't do any of these opportunities. They're all wonderful opportunities. You got to go back and maximize your business. You haven't maximized your business. And one of the guys had just been to one of my seminars, my Unleash the Power Within seminar, and he came up to me and said, Tony, it's the most incredible thing I've ever done in my life. He goes, Tony, you work so hard. You're on stage 12, 14 hours a day. I don't know how you hold people's attention. People won't sit for a 2-hour movie, 3-hour movie. And you got people, so you're never going to want to do this when you're like 42. Because I was like 32. Same guy, 3 weeks later goes, you're not working hard enough on your business. I'm like, what the heck? And what it was they all reacted because they're used to a different type of business. And one of the guys afterwards says, hey, and I was near tears because I walked in thinking I have the greatest business opportunities in the world, and I walked back feeling like I'm a piece of you-know-what, right? And one of the guys, a billionaire, says to me, he goes, hey, Tony, where are you staying? I said, I'm at the Four Seasons. He goes, oh, I'm staying there too. It's 3 blocks away. Can I walk with you? I want to get your advice on something. I thought, who, me? Dumb F? I'm the one you want this advice from, right? And he says to me, I'll never forget, he goes, Tony, he owned Fruit of the Loom underwear company. He goes, I got an offer. Make me about $1.9 billion. So I gotta decide, do I sell the company? Do I build it up bigger and then sell it? Or do I keep it for my son? And I said, Bill, I said, I love you to death. I said, you already know the answer. You want me to confirm it for you. Let's be honest. I said, first of all, if you sell the company now and get $1.8 billion, $1.9 billion more, it's not gonna change your life one iota. You have the planes, the cars, the homes, all that stuff, plenty of cash. It's not gonna change your life. But if you sell when the business is not at its peak, you'll resent yourself later on. You'll be mad because you're a guy that loves to maximize. He goes, oh, you're so right. And I said, keeping it for your son? He's 5, right? Does he want to be the underwear king? I don't think so. I said, go build it a little bit more to the level you know it is and then sell it, right? And he goes, oh my God, it's so brilliant, so great. But what I got out of this conversation that changed my life was I hated it. I felt they didn't understand, and they didn't understand a bunch. But I said, there's got to be some truth in there. And then I saw this story about this guy who spent, I think it was 17 years looking for this Spanish galleon. His name was Mel, I'm blanking on the last name, but it was very famous in the 1990s, 80s. And he literally made no money, found nothing. Like 16 years into it, he had to convince people to give him more money. One of his members of his crew died. It was the most brutal approach. How could you possibly keep going out there looking for treasure and not finding it for 5 years and not give up, or 10, 16, I think he went 18 if I remember correctly. And he found $500 million worth of gold. So I asked myself a question. I said, what would make a guy go 16, 17, 18 years with no evidence of success and keep doing it and convince people to give him money and keep going, working 7-day weeks? He'd have to believe something different than other people. What would he have to believe? And I thought first he'd have to believe the treasure's there. I didn't believe the treasure was in my business. So you didn't find it, right? Second, you'd have to believe I will find it. And third, to go that many years, you'd have to believe it's worth it. And I shifted those 3 beliefs in my business. And once I committed completely to that business and nothing else, I grew that business like crazy, and I ended up selling half that business for $200 million, the business that looked like it would never make anything. Oh, wow. When I did that, I said, now I'm a successful entrepreneur. Now I'll take on some other companies because I'm not BSing myself. I've really built it. This idea you're going to go build 9 companies, nice ego stroke, no way you can give them the focus that you need. But today, I can do more with my pinky than I used to be able to do working 20-hour days because I know more people, I have more context, I have more strategy, I have more tools. And so you've got to make sure you maximize something and really make a real business. You want to know your real test? Could you sell the business tomorrow for a significant multiple? If not, don't start another business. Or get rid of this business, sell it, and start something fresh. But most people are always looking for what's easier, and it always looks easier. What you really want to do is maximize the business you're in. Emotion is it, and if we get the right emotion, we can get ourselves to do anything. We can get through it. If you're creative enough, playful enough, fun enough, can you get through to anybody, yes or no? If you don't have the money, but you're creative or determined enough, you find the way. So this is the ultimate resource, but this is not the story that people tell us, right? The story people tell us is a bunch of different stories. They tell us we don't have the resources, but ultimately, if you take a look here, flip it up if you would. They say, what are all the reasons they have in common? We've said that. Next one, please. He's broken my pattern. But I appreciated the energy, I'll tell you that. What determines your resources? We've said decisions shape destiny, which is my focus here. If decisions shape destiny, what determines it is 3 decisions. What are you going to focus on? Right now, you have to decide what you're going to focus on. In this second, consciously or unconsciously, the minute you decide to focus on something, you got to give it a meaning. And whatever that meaning is produces emotion. Is this the end or the beginning? Is God punishing me or rewarding me, or is this the roll of the dice? And emotion then creates what we're going to do, or the action. So think about your own life, the decisions that have shaped your destiny. And that sounds really heavy, but in the last 5 or 10 years, 15 years, haven't there been some decisions you've made that if you made a different decision, your life would be completely different? How many can think of one, honestly? Better or worse? Say aye. So the bottom line is maybe it was where to go to work and you met the love of your life there. Maybe it was a career decision. I know the Google geniuses I saw here. I mean, I understand that their decision was to sell their technology at first. What if they made that decision versus to build their own culture? How would the world be different? How would their lives be different? Their impact. The history of our world is these decisions. When a woman stands up and says, no, I won't go to the back of the bus, she didn't just affect her life. That decision shaped our culture. Or someone standing in front of a tank. Or being in a position like Lance Armstrong and someone says to you, you got testicular cancer. That's pretty tough for any male, especially if you ride a bike. Right? You got it in your brain, you got it in your lungs. But what was his decision of what to focus on? Different than most people. What did it mean? It wasn't the end, it was the beginning. What am I gonna do? He goes off and wins 7 championships he never won once before the cancer because he got emotional fitness, psychological strength. That's the difference in human beings that I've seen of the 3 million I've been around. Because that's about my lab. I've had 3 million people from 80 different countries that I've had a chance to interact with over the last 29 years. And after a while, patterns become obvious. You see that South America and Africa maybe connect in a certain way, right? Other people say, oh, that sounds ridiculous. It's simple. So what shaped Lance, what shapes you? 2 invisible forces, very quickly. 1, state. We all have had times. Have you had a time you did something and after you did it, you thought to yourself, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I did that. That was so stupid. Who's been there? Say aye. Have you ever done something after you do it, you go, that was me. Right? It wasn't your ability, it was your state. I should be able to change that quickly, but what I want to finish with quickly here is your model of the world is what shapes you long term. Your model of the world is the filter. That's what's shaping us. That's what makes people make decisions. We want to influence somebody, we got to know what already influences them. And it's made up of 3 parts, I believe. First, what's your target? What are you after? Which I believe it's not your desires. You can get your desires to goals. How many of you got a goal, desire, and thought, is this all there is? How many have been there? Say aye. So it's needs we have. I believe there are 6 human needs. Second, once you know what the target that's driving you is and you uncover it for the truth, you don't form it, you uncover it. Then you find out what's your map. What's the belief systems that are telling you how to get those needs? Some people think the way to get those needs is destroy the world. Some people is to build something. Create something, love someone. My very first teacher was a man named Jim Rohn, and he was a personal development speaker. And he had this 3.5-hour seminar he would do that I went to when I was 17 years old. I was already reading books. I was obsessed with wanting answers. I want to know what made the difference in the quality of people's lives. Not because I was intellectually interested, but because I grew up in a really tough environment. I had 4 different fathers. There was a lot of, my mom was a great human being who loved me dearly, but she, abused both alcohol and prescription drugs. So she was very physically abusive. And I was, believe it or not, 5'1" in high school. I was a little guy. So I got the, beat out of me pretty regularly for things that I didn't do anything to do with. And so it made me try to figure out what made her work, what makes life work. It made me more of a practical psychologist. And the modeling concept came because Jim Rohn used to have this phrase. He said, success leaves clues. He said, if there's anything you want in your life, don't assume that somebody has some special gift. They may have a gift, but they probably developed it, most of it. And if you sow the same seeds, you'll reap the same reward. So figure out what this person's doing different than anyone else and do that. He used to have a funny way of describing it. He used to say, Tony, find out what poor people read and don't read it. It's like, because he said, that's the fabric they're trying to build their mind from. Find out somebody who's successful, wealthy, not just financially wealthy, but somebody who's rich emotionally and spiritually and physically and financially, and find out how do they live their life differently? What are the things they believe? What are some of the daily disciplines that they're a part of? And so really early on, I got obsessive about wanting to have all the answers. So I said, I'm gonna read a book a day. Because I figured, a person takes 10, 15 years of their life, they pour 2 or 3, 4 years into this book, and you absorb in a few hours, literally a decade's worth of life experience. And I'm into compressing time. So I didn't read a book a day, but I read 700 books in the area of human development, psychology, physiology, all in my first real 7 years of reading, right, my youth. In high school, I was Mr. Solution. You have a problem, I have the solution. Especially if you're a girl, I was especially motivated. I could really help you with your boyfriend. The most important thing first is if you're going to succeed in business, you have to know who your ideal client is. Who is the client that is your ideal, that if you built your business on that, it would grow. If the economics of the economy dropped, they'd still buy from you. That's the person you want to cherish, you want to fall in love with. You don't want to fall in love with your product, you want to fall in love with your client. And you want to know more about them than anybody else. Because I always say life is the dance between what you desire most and what you fear most. So if you can expand your desires and break through your fears, you expand your life massively. So for the people that are really watching, I think the more you know about those needs, if you can do more for them than anybody else, then you go to the second piece, which is add more value than anyone in your industry. If you do more for others than anybody else, and you don't just do it for a day or a week or a month, you do it, like I always tell people, most people overestimate what they're going to do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in a decade or 2 or 3. If you do that year after year, the word spreads and you start to build a brand. And if you do that for a decade or more, you can start to actually dominate the industry. So you got to know everything about them. You got to add the value, and you got to find an irresistible offer. Tom Shoe's irresistible offer. He took a product, quite frankly, product's not very good at all, but the offer is really great. Now, if I buy and wear these crappy shoes, you'll get another pair and you'll give them to someone who doesn't have shoes, I'm in. And now a bunch of people, they're doing it with glasses and things of that nature. Or 99 cents on iTunes. I mean, people are getting everything for free. Why should I buy it? Better fidelity, easy, clear, but only 99 cents. That offer. Zappos, right? Tony Hsieh is a good friend of mine. He comes up and he joins the founders, and they're living in this little house up in San Francisco, and they're totally frustrated. We're spending all this money and we're trying to sell women's shoes online and it's not working. How come? Well, they got to try them on. And well, they aren't doing it because they don't want to spend the money on shipping it. And Tony Hsieh changes the offer. He says, look, we're going to let people order as many shoes as they want. We're going to pay for all the shipping. And if they don't like any of them, we can send them back and we pay the shipping back. Now, if you're the investor in the company, what do you say to that? Are you crazy? We're going to go bankrupt because you don't understand our ideal customer, these women. They have a different relationship to shoes than you and I do. Women say shoes equal happiness. A woman could put on one shoe, she's one woman. She changes shoes, she's another woman, right? And he said, they're going to get these shoes and we're going to pay to get them there. They're not going to send them back 99% of the time because if they like the shoe, even if it doesn't fit, they'll convince themselves it'll fit in the future, right? And when I talk about this in like big seminars, women are laughing, raising their hand, going, yeah, high five, and it's true. And he built a business he sold for $1.2 billion, and he still runs it because he wasn't doing it for the money. He loved building the culture and doing this, but he came up with that irresistible offer. So know more about them. Make sure you add value massively. Have an irresistible offer. It'd be 3 things I'd start with. And if I gave you a 4th one, throw it in, you better know your numbers. Right? I do these boot camps and I bring in a guy that's just a genius who gives them like an MBA in 5 hours. It sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. He's done billions of dollars of the deals and he teaches them how to know their numbers because most entrepreneurs, that's not their skill. They're good at marketing or creating a product or innovating or selling or whatever. But the financials is why most people die because you don't want an accountant, you need a CFO. And yet when you're a small company, you can't afford a CFO because they're like, $400,000. What's different about a CFO than an accountant? Accountant just puts the numbers in the right columns. He'll tell you, oh, you have this much profit, and you go, yay, and then you find out at the end of the year, there was no cash. Profit and cash are not the same thing, and you go, oh my God, what am I gonna do? So understanding your numbers and understanding that profit is a theory, right? You can have big profit and no cash. You have to understand how that works, and you gotta just take the time to get that skill so that numbers become intelligence. Because if you have the right numbers and you know what they mean, now you can make better decisions. You make better decisions, you're gonna win. I believe in energy, I believe in inspiration because inspired, in spirit, the opposite of that is kind of dead, right? So I believe in being inspired, but I'm a strategist at my core. And if you're inspired and you run east looking for a sunset, I don't give a damn how enthusiastic you are, how positive you are, it's not gonna happen. Right. So I'm a strategist first, but I really do believe that people have got to look at their life and say, as much as I want great strategy, I need a great philosophy of my life that's going to make me fulfilled. Right. If you're fulfilled, like you said, you mentioned earlier, if you were with your friends and you guys weren't succeeding, but you're having a damn good time with this camaraderie, it's still worthwhile. And you can find a way to succeed eventually. But what the hell is success? It's hitting an expectation. And I always tell people, man, trade your expectations for appreciation, and it's a whole new world instantly. Yeah. If you can appreciate this moment, if you can't find ecstasy in this moment, in a conversation with a friend and looking in your wife's eyes, being with your children, going on a run, if you can't find ecstasy now, I'm here to tell you, more money, more people, more love, more business, more anything is not going to give you more ecstasy. Right. If you can't do it here now, you're not going to do it there when you got more. Yeah. So why not do it now and have a rich life right now? I tell people, money, that's one thing. Like having financial abundance, there's skills. That's a science. But wealth, it's a decision. It's like you can be wealthy right now. I live in Fiji a good portion of the time. There are these villagers there. They're the richest people I know. They're happy, they laugh, they love. They don't give a damn about the economics. Other people say they're poor. When I first went there, I was trying to do things for them. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm so happy. Wealthy people come over from the United States and they go travel around and try to figure out what to do. And they're going to spend 9 years to do this and this and this so they can finally sit down and be happy. And the Fijian guy goes, why don't you sit on the beach right now, dude, and experience it? Why spend the 9 years? Why not have it now? That's my invitation. David Swenson, he took 1 billion, turned it into 24 billion in 2 decades, in 20 years. Just mind-boggling. A billion a year, right? Just think about that level of doubling. It's just mind-boggling. And I asked him, I said, what are the dials? What are the only dials we can touch? And he said, Tony, to increase your return, there's only a few things you can do. He said, you can make better selections of stocks. He said, you can have better timing. He said, and you can have better asset allocation. He said, the first 2 will never happen. because the first two cost you money. Got to hire somebody. Everybody's wrong on the timing. He said asset allocation, which simply means dividing your money into different buckets. Some of those buckets are secure, so that even though you think you're going to be a genius, you're going to make money no matter what. That money goes slower, but it'll always be there and it'll give you freedom for the rest of your life. There's a growth bucket, which is also a risk bucket. We forget that. Because one of the things Ray Dalio taught me, he said, Tony, everybody invests in what they think they know. So you grew up with real estate, you're not a genius, but you made money in real estate because anybody can when real estate's growing up. You think you're a genius. You think you know stocks. Oh, you're a genius, in 1999, right? You're a genius in 2010 when things started to grow a bit. He said, whatever you invest in your lifetime, that area is going to drop 50 to 70%. There is zero exception. He can show you mathematically and he can show you historically. So he said, you have to diversify even though you don't want to. And you have to divide these monies up. So every one of them taught me different asset allocations. But the one that I think is the most valuable for anybody to really take advantage of is Ray Dalio's. Because Ray Dalio's figured out, why is it in 2008, if your stockbroker, your financial planner said, we're going to protect you. We're going to put you half in stocks and half in bonds. Why did they both go down? You weren't protected at all. Same thing happened in 2000. And he figured something out. When you think you're in a balanced portfolio, you're not balanced. And the reason is stocks are 3 times more volatile than you'll find in bonds. What does that mean? It means when you think you're 50-50, you're 50-50 with your money, but you're not 50-50 with your risk. You're 95% at risk and 5% on the good side. That's why everybody loses. So he figured a formula because he said, look, someday I'm going to be gone. I want my kids to have the money long term. I want all the philanthropic things I'm doing to be taken care of. So he spent 15 years studying the markets and figured out, how do I design a portfolio that'll make money every time? Like if it loses money, it lost in 75 years, it's lost 1.6% when it's lost, but it's been right 85% of the time. If you went to Vegas and you had a plan that worked for 75 years and made money 85% of the time, and when you lost 1.6%, and when you gained more than 10%. The biggest loss in 75 years is 3.95%, less than 4. So why did people not make it in the stock market? Because when you take a 50% hit, they all say stay in. Nobody, the average person never stays in. If you look at the last 20 years, the average person, the stock market over 20 years, from 1993 to 2013, has averaged 9.2%. Pretty cool compounding. You double your money pretty damn quick doing that. But the average mutual fund investors made 2.5%. Why? Because they freak out, they sell when it goes down, they buy when it's looking good, it's just the wrong time to buy it. They don't know what to do. So what Ray Dalio's strategy does, and by the way, he's never shared this strategy ever publicly.
And he gives it in here.
He gives it in here, which is mind-boggling. I pushed him, I teased him, I cajoled him. In the end, I said, look, you're not taking any more money, help the average guy out. He lays it out, you can do it yourself or you have someone else do it for you, but it takes 15 minutes a year and 85% success over 75 years. And I could take any time period, the last 30 years. You lost money 4 times. One of those is 0.003%, so it's really break even. So, and again, the most you ever lost, less than 4%, average 1.9%. So if you're looking for a plan, I put some money there. Then the other money that I would do is I'd take some of that money and I'd look at what are the biggest trends. I have a lot of my money also in senior housing. And the reason is twofold. It's a demographic inevitability. There's this giant wave of baby boomers, and there isn't enough senior housing to take care of them. And I like it. I like to create a quality place for someone to be able to be lived and taken care of and so forth. But there's huge income from it, and there's the growth in the asset itself.
What should I be, going all in on? As millennials that are starting businesses, like many people in our community, they're going all in on their business, and they're sacrificing profit for growth. So they don't have that much spare change. What's your advice there? What are your thoughts?
I'm really glad you asked me that question, because every entrepreneur I meet, I have this conversation with one-on-one people that are my friends. And I do it in my business seminars too. And I show people, I do business boot camps, and I spend 5 days showing them how to grow their business 100% plus. And then I take a half a day and show them what to do to have a second business. Here's what I'd say to you if you're a founder out there, if you're somebody starting an organization. The amount of money that you get, whatever cash you have, if it's a growing business, will always be eaten up by the organization. So a friend of mine, Ken Blanchard, he wrote the 1 Minute Manager books you may have read years ago. I met him 30 years ago, and I helped him take 5 strokes off his golf game, so he thought I was God. And I don't play golf. I just know what to do here and here with somebody. And so afterwards, he goes, I want to do something for you. I said, look, you don't do anything. About 2 months later, he calls me up and says, I want to have lunch with you. I want to give you a gift. He said, I want to share with you the best financial advice that changed my life. So what is it? He said, this very wealthy friend of mine saw I was writing a book, and he saw I was growing my business, and he said, I want to tell you something. a business, he said what I told you earlier, will take whatever cash is there, because a growing business, there's always needs.
Yeah.
He said, you have to draw a line in the sand. And he said, your book should be the first line in the sand. You should put none of that money in your company. The clients that like the book will become clients of the company, and you shouldn't take that money. You should put in an investment account that you don't touch, and it continues to compound to create financial freedom. He said, Tony, I took his advice, and then I went through 3 different stages where we almost went bankrupt in the business because I had so much cash and money, I wasn't stressed. So I was able to keep my head straight and run my business better. Because if you think about it, and I did that too. I did it with my first books. Now I give away all the profits of my books. My first books and my first infomercials.
Yes.
And I worked, 275 days a year on the road. I never earned as much as I did by compounding, because compounding changes the game. So what you have to do if you're a business owner, you have to get yourself where you say, I'm going to put a tax on my business.
Yep.
Not the government tax, my tax. My future self is going to be free forever. Because look, in business, 96% of businesses don't make it in 10 years. I'm sure all of yours will, but even the 4% that make it aren't necessarily profitable. So, and the reason is because government can change the rules, right? Taxes can shift radically affected. Clients shift their preferences. Technology, new competition.
Yeah.
So I tell everybody, I believe you'll make your business succeed, but everybody should have a business on the side with no employees, no moving parts, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes a year to rebalance it, so that if anything happens here, you're still strong and you can make this stronger. Or if this goes well and this goes well as well, you have twice as much money and you're there. But you got to understand what this compounding does, right? This compounding, you don't need a lot of money to get really, really wealthy. One of the examples I put in the book here was the example of a man who talks to his son. He's 18 years old, and the man understands finance and understands the power of compounding. So he says to his son, you got your first job, you're 18. I'm going to require that you take $300 every month, $150 a paycheck, and we're going to automate it to this separate account. And his son's like, I can't do that. He goes, let me tell you why you want to do it. It'll be up to you. If you promise to do that and you really do it and you automate it so you don't see it, and you do that for 8 years, you'll never have to invest again and you'll be financially set for life. His son goes, come on, Dad. 8 years, $300 a month, what is that? As he does the math, he goes, that's $28,000, over 8 years, $28,800. $28,800, how's that going to do anything? Especially if I don't have any more money after 27 years old. He goes, let me show you, son. The market's gone up 10% over 30 years. Let's apply a lower number. Let's do 8%. Be conservative. Let me show you what the numbers are when they compound. You know how much he has when he retires? $1.8 million, and all he put in was $28,800. If you want a breakthrough, not just a little change, you can change laterally. You can go from being pissed off to frustrated.
Right.
Doesn't help you much, right? But if you really want to change, most people are trying to change. Say you want to lose weight, they want to make money. They go, how do I do it? They look for the strategy. But I'd like all 3 of you to think of 3 S's. Strategy is where most people go first. Like, how do I do it? But how hard is it really truly to be fit and have energy? It's not that complex. It's not like reserved for the 1% or expensive to learn. You have to interrupt, you have to hide from the answers to those things. The real problem is the second S, story. See, the reason the person is making progress, they may not know what to do. Sometimes that's true. But some people know what to do and they don't do what they know. Yeah. That's most people.
Yes.
And so why? They have a story that says, it's a set of beliefs they tell themselves over and again. I've tried everything. Or if they're single, all the good ones are gone. Whatever the story is. And if you tell yourself a story over and over again, Hitler used to say, tell a story big enough, loud enough, long enough, people believe you. Well, we're Hitler to ourselves. We convince ourselves. The thing we really need though is, you always come up with a lousy story when you're in a lousy state. Yes. And so the number one thing I show people to do is how to change their emotional state. When you're feeling tired or frustrated, when you learn how to change your body so that you really feel excited and isn't fake, when you learn how to change your biochemistry, which is what I teach people to do. For example, when you're in love, when you're upset with someone, do you ever notice how you can now remember everything that they've ever done that ever upset you? Right? Yes. And when you're in love, when you're totally in love, everybody make the sound of being in love. Try it. Oh, it's been a while for some of you, clearly. Let's try it again. Out of your mind in love, you can't stop thinking about the person. Make the sound how that feels. Go for it, everybody. I will work on that. But when you're in love, what's wrong with life? What's wrong with anything? When you're in love, we have no money. Who cares? We're in love. Right? So your emotional state controls the story you have about your life, and then your story determines whether you find a strategy, or even if you know the strategy, whether you really do it or not. When people say I tried, what they're really telling me is I have a story that says I should try this, but it's really not going to work. So I give it a half-reared attempt and it didn't work, and now I can tell people I tried. What you really got to do is learn to change your emotion, your state, change your story, and then you can find the strategy or you can make the strategy to work. If you really want to get lasting change, real results that stick around, what do you got to do? What are the most important things you've learned, Tony, in that area? And I tell people the most common thing people talk about is how they want to make a change in their life. But everybody wants a change, but nobody wants to work out. Everybody wants muscle, but nobody wants to train. See, one of the challenges that we have in our lives is we don't realize that the process of training ourselves, the process of conditioning ourselves actually feels incredible once you get that initial momentum. But most people don't. Why? Why do so many people say, well, I lost 100 pounds, the same 10 pounds 10 times, or they'll tell me, I'm on my 4th day without a cigarette, man. I'm doing really good. If you're counting the days, it's not lasting change. You're just counting the days. You can tell people how long you lasted. If you want lasting change, you've got to give up this idea of trying something. You got to decide you're going to commit to mastery. And when I say commit to mastery, what I mean by that is most people dabble. They talk about, well, I'd like to change my body. I'd like to make my relationship better. I'd like to have more passion there, but they don't know what to do. And even if they did, they don't have enough detail to be able to follow through. They haven't made the shifts in their own emotion and their psychology to follow through. And it isn't that difficult, but there is a path and it requires consistency. Think about it. Everybody overeats some of the time. Everybody gets angry or frustrated or sad or depressed some of the time. Your life is not controlled by what you do some of the time. It's what you do consistently. And here's the secret. Whatever you want to make better, you better make sure you measure it more often. Think about it. If you want to lose weight and you never look at a scale, that's how people find themselves 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight, or even 10 or 15, because it just kind of happens slowly and it's all at once. What do businesses go out of business? Things are okay, and then all of a sudden they're in trouble overnight. It's not overnight. All of our success and failure in life comes from little decisions, little actions, little moments. Failure isn't an overnight event. It's failure to make the phone call. It's failure to say, I love you. It's failure to take care of your body. It's failure to invest some time in yourself so you keep growing and expanding and not just reacting to the world that's constantly demanding your attention. Success comes from doing the right things also, little things, saying I love you, taking the time for what matters most, your body, your mind, your spirit, your emotion, having a plan, and measuring your progress. If you had $1 billion, but the habitual emotions you go back to are frustrated and pissed off, then your life is called frustrated and pissed off. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Write this down, please. The quality of my life is the quality of my habitual emotions. The quality of my entire life is nothing but the quality of my habitual emotions. Whatever habits of emotion, wherever my emotional home is, I will find a way to get back there. And until I change that, I'm gonna have a problem. How many of you see people in some part of the world, in my country, for example, you'll see this in the middle of America where there's certain places that have cyclones all the time. Or maybe down in New Orleans or places where every few years you get a huge storm that wipes out everybody right on the coast there. But then 2 years later, it happens again. They rebuild, it happens again. How many have ever thought to yourself, why don't these people move? And why don't they move, guys? Because it's what they're conditioned. They call that home. I don't want to leave my home. It's what I know. It's easy to see when it's somebody else and it's physical. It's harder to see when it's yourself and it's emotional, because we have an emotional home. Some of you grew up in a really tough environment. I did too. Pretty brutal environment. Very painful environment. Part of I am who I am is because I didn't want to suffer. I had to find answers. And because I suffered so much, I don't want you to ever suffer if I can do anything about it. I can't control it, but I can help massively. But it's only because I suffered so much I don't want anybody else to. But think about it. Most people suffer even when they're successful. Listen, if you're successful and you're not fulfilled, that's the ultimate failure. If you got people that love you and you're not feeling joyous and alive, something's wrong. And you know what it is? You got an old home you're used to. Maybe the home you're used to is not a very happy home. It's a home of worry, a home of frustration, a home of anger, a home of feeling everything's unjust. And so you find a way to get back home using whatever the environment you can use. How many of you know somebody who's always pissed off about something? How many of you know somebody who is always worried? How many of you know someone who's not really funny, but they think they are? and they crack themselves up telling jokes. How many know someone like this who cracks themselves up and they laugh so much that even though it's not funny, you find yourself laughing too? These people have different emotional homes. Some people's home is anger. They'll always find something to be angry about. It's what they're used to. It's their conditioning. So even when the storm comes in and messes up their life, they go right back to that same. Wouldn't it be nice to upgrade your home, your emotional home where you live? What if you could live every day with a vast majority of the emotions you had were joy and gratitude and love and appreciation, even in the middle of COVID, even when somebody does something unjust, compassion, playfulness. What would that feel like if you were in those states every day, 90-95% of the time? When you weren't, you got out of it quick. You can make that change this weekend, and I'm not exaggerating an ounce. I'm not saying you're going to be perfect and never have a negative feeling, because negative feelings are sometimes a signal to make us change. But most people have a negative feeling and they just hang on to it and keep living with it and find other things to be negative about. That will never give you what you want. The money won't do it. The acknowledgement of others won't do it. Everything you think will do it will not do it. Only one thing will do it. You drawing a line in the sand and making the most important decision of your life that you're going to live in a beautiful state no matter what. Because life is too short to suffer. We have a choice. Listen to me. Pain is sometimes part of life, but suffering is a choice. But for most of us, not a choice, because we have the habit of suffering, being stressed, being worried, being frustrated, being pissed off. And because we're wired that way, that's the muscle we built. But if we rebuild our home here so it's even more magnificent, then you can have the life that you desire and deserve. And you can do it in one weekend only if you give your all and push enough energy out while you're doing it, while you're learning.
So is there something small you've done? You know, an example was you giving money to, you know, that child was a great example of that. But is there something recently you've done that's so small that you're like really proud of?
A lot of people don't think proud is a good term. I think it actually is. Ego is edging God out. That's when you make shit up to make yourself feel good. But I think if you've really done something, you know you have, and no one could take that from you. And so I'm proud of who I am as a man. I'm proud of the things that, you know, what goes on when the camera's not on. And there are people around me all the time that will tell other people stories about what I'm really like, so I don't have to communicate that to people. It gets shared. So I don't know. There's so many things in life. I don't measure them as big versus small. Sure. My wife was somebody who would see one person and be thrilled, and I had to see 10,000. I think so. She's balanced it out for me. I feel like life is short, and while you're here, I want to have the most impact that I can. So I go deep and I go wide. But every interaction to me is an important interaction, and sometimes that interaction is just being kind. I know it sounds stupid, but kindness can, to the right place at the right time. Somebody can be suicidal, you don't know it, and you're being kind, and it changes their state. There's an interesting story of there's a gentleman who wanted to kill Nixon, and he couldn't get access to Nixon. It's a true story. And so he wrote a journal. That's how we know the details of it. And he decided he's going to go after Wallace and he's going to shoot Wallace. And he actually did do that shooting. And when they read his journal, it was fascinating. He didn't want to kill Nixon because he didn't like him or Wallace. He just wanted to be famous. He wanted to be worth something. And one of the reasons he didn't kill Nixon is he was going after Nixon and he was this far from the president, and an old woman bumped into him just as he's reaching his pocket to get this gun. And in the middle of this, everything's frenzied. He wants to shoot, become the most famous man, another one of those assassins. And this woman grabbed his hand and said, "I'm so sorry. I'm just so sorry." Really? And he said in his journal afterwards, his hand was on the gun. Wow. And her looking in his eyes with this love in her eyes and this kindness in her eyes, he said, "I couldn't make her witness that," and he put the gun away. Oh, man. That saved Nixon's life. Wow. Right. So we went after Wallace, But that's the power of a moment of kindness. So I think we underestimate. Somebody came and fed my family when I was 11 years old, Obviously, the person must not be alive still because I've told the story these last 20 years, and they haven't reached out to me. But, imagine what the impact of that was by that one little act of kindness. People ask my wife all the time, what's something about Tony that nobody knows? And she says, the level he prepares. So that was Ray Dalio. I know I got a chance to be with literally the Da Vinci of investing. Most average people have never heard his name, but you have to have 10 years ago, you should have a $5 billion net worth. And you had to give him $100 million to start with for him to talk to you. Right. Today, he won't talk to you and take your money no matter how much money you have. He's closed his fund out. He won't do a dime more. So to do that, I couldn't consciously walk in and just say, okay, I've read everything that's available. I had to watch every video. There's only a few out there. I had to read every piece. I had to like tear it apart and see if I could understand his entire structure of investing so that when I was there, I could ask questions no one else has asked before. And as a result, he actually shared with me, he's averaged a 23% return for 21 straight years. Billions and billions and billions of dollars. Smartest man, one of the smartest men alive in that area. And because I understood so much, we could pitch and catch. Right. You know, most people, you know, they can just throw the ball, right? But I want to be able to throw the ball and have you throw it to me and throw it right back to you, right? That's where we get something that's really exciting. And because I prepared at that level, he was saying to me afterwards, he goes, you know this better than anybody I know. And so it opened him up more. And you talked to me in more detail. And in the end, he actually gave me a strategy that I said to him, I said, look, I said, Ray, I said, you're one of the most generous men I know. I said, you've just given me this incredible strategy, but the strategy was like explaining why most people lose money and here's how he's made money in every market, right? Pretty complex strategy. And I said, the strategy's great, but it's kind of like you told me you want to build a chocolate cake, get some chocolate, you know, get some sugar. You didn't tell me the amounts. I mean, the amounts are everything, right? You got to have the right amounts. And he goes, Tony, I can't give you that. That's my secret sauce. And I said, Ray, you can give it to me. He goes, I can't. He goes, that's what I get, you know, that's why, you know, I get the money I do. I said, no, you don't. You haven't taken money for 10 years. I said, you're going to give away half your net worth anyway. I said, you just got done telling me the average guy is never going to do this. Help me out. Give me your secret sauce, right? And I got him laughing. He goes, well, Tony, it's kind of complex. I said, I'm good at taking complex and making it simple. He goes, well, I use leverage. I said, create one without leverage so the average guy could do it. Right. And then I got this chill down the back of my spine when he said, well, it wouldn't be perfect. I said, your idea not perfect is better than anybody else on earth. I said, tell me. And then I took out a pen and I said, tell me the numbers, right? And he looked at me and goes, well, let's try this. And he starts to lay this thing out. So when I'm done, I can feel vibration in my body. Like I got something nobody's got that I can give to the world that'll be extraordinary. And he goes, go test that. He goes, no, when people talk about testing, they look back 5 years or 10 years. He said, but the past doesn't equal the future that way. But if you were to test something over 75 years, the entire modern time of history, that's what you should test that formula. Back test it for 75 years, come back and tell me what you get. 85% of the time, it's for 75 years. Think of how much the world has changed in the last 10 years or 20 years. 85% of the time it makes money. The 15% of the time it didn't. The maximum drawdown in 75 years was not 20% like you've seen at 30 or 40, you've seen in the marketplace over the years. It's 3.9%. The average loss is 1.7, average gain is 10%. So if you could go to Vegas and you could be right 85% of the time, and when you lost, only lose, you know, 1%, 1.7%, how you'd be investing a little bit, you'd be gambling a little bit, right? So he gave that to me. So I got those types of things because I was so prepared. And so when I go to do an audience, a big audience, like I do my Date with Destiny seminar, people do 20 pages of homework and I read all that for a couple thousand people. I won't remember their faces, I won't remember, it's in my brain. So when somebody stands up, something inside of me recognizes the pattern or recognizes this is the pattern that multiple people in the room need to deal with. And my brain clicks in and makes it happen. So I believe, you know, garbage in, garbage out, as simplistic as it is, that if you keep putting unbelievable quality amount in, when it's time for you to cash that spiritual, emotional, physical, financial, business check, it ain't gonna bounce because you've been making deposits and you have plenty to give. You're not just winging it to see what happens. So I'm intense about that, but I also love it because I'm always growing too, because I'm always learning more than I need to teach anybody else.
If you want another amazing Tony Robbins video, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
When you think you're 50-50, you're 50-50 with your money, but you're not 50-50 with your risk. You're 95% at risk and 5% on the good side. That's why everybody loses.
Andrew Carnegie, who was the wealthiest man in the world while he was alive, said,